if you want to really push pricing all the way through and make it hit your bottom line, work and coordinate across all players that are relevant for that decision.
Coffee's for closers only.
So we've established my proposal is sound in principle. Now we're just haggling over price.
Let's see how much we're going for on eBay.
Man, it's the same as Dunkin' Donuts. Costs 15 times the price.
Welcome to Impact Pricing, the podcast where we discuss pricing, value, and the sober relationship between them. I'm Mark Stiving. Today our guest is Karl Petersson. Here are 3 things you want to know about Karl before we start. He started out life as a commercial airline pilot. Oh, I'm jealous. He spent many years at Navedi, a pricing software firm, before they were acquired by Vendavo, and he is currently Director of Commercial Performance at Bacardi. Welcome, Karl.
Thank you.
Okay, so I'm so excited to talk to you for many reasons. Number one, you know a lot about pricing. And number 2, I'm always fascinated about pricing in my hobbies, and drinking happens to be a hobby.
Right.
So let's see if we could talk about pricing spirits today. But before we do that, how'd you get into pricing?
I got into pricing straight out of after I had my master's degree. I joined this startup company at that time, Navedi. I had other options, but this was so interesting to use analytics and go out and build a company. We were only 7 people at that time. It was amazing.
Nice. What did Navedi do? What was their claim to fame?
We started out by helping large international companies with their aftermarket pricing. That's the niche we started out with. And we provided them solutions in the sense that we both came out as business consultants, helping them figure out the pricing and making it value-based. And we built our software tool, PricePoint. So we sold them the solution of transforming your pricing and finding a home for your new strategy so you can run it.
Nice. And so did you fall in love with the concept of pricing and you kind of stuck with it, or how did that happen?
Yeah, you could say that. Like I got into it. I loved the pricing we did. I loved also pushing us out of our niche into other kinds of pricing. And when I moved over to the US, got into Bacardi, it was amazing to get into a very different kind of pricing.
Well, excellent. Let's talk about this very different kind of pricing then. So describe pricing in the spirits industry in a way I would understand it. What's the high level?
High level in the US is if you are a winery, distillery, or brewery, you need to sell to a distributor. You cannot go out and sell directly to a restaurant. You can't sell directly to grocery. You'll sell to the distributor, and then the distributor will sell it to nightclubs, hotels, etc., or grocery. And then you as a consumer can pick up the product either on premise or in the store. And these 3 levels creates some complexities.
This is true in all 50 states?
No. Then you get to the statewide difference. Every state is different. And some states, ever since Prohibition, have been control states. So in control states, it's the state runs the liquor store for you. It's not, you can't go to a grocery store to pick it up. So you have some control states, you have some open states, and they also have franchise states where the distributor is a franchisee and they hold on to that brand no matter what.
And so it sounds like you guys always sell to a distributor. Is that
right?
True? In the US?
In the US, we always sell through a distributor.
And so do you even think about pricing at the consumer level, at the grocery store or at a nightclub, anything like that?
Well, and that's the interesting part. Like you could sit down and sell it to the distributor and then just, let whatever happens happen. But that's not how we want to do it. We want to be active and support the decisions that distributor makes when they design their pricing, and also be active and help the grocery stores when they make their pricing decisions. We find the best outcomes when we all coordinate together. We can only recommend, but when we work very tightly across this whole chain, aligning all these different motives, when we can align them, then we can do awesome pricing. But when they misalign, we can get really big issues.
Right. And so you have salespeople that go out and talk to the grocery store or the end retailer, as well as to the distributor. So even though the grocery store isn't buying from you, we're treating them like a customer because they're the pull through for our product.
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah. And I guess that's no different than advertising to an end customer. Right? If I see a Bacardi ad, you're trying to sell to me so that I go to the store and buy it, who bought it from the distributor, who bought it from you.
Yeah. Yeah. And the challenge there is as if you're a spirits company and you hold a bunch of brands, you want, of course, your brands to succeed. You're investing so heavily behind these brands, building a value perception with the customer, with the consumer. And then you come to the groceries. They don't have to be aligned with what you want. So the amazing brand you have might not be perceived amazingly in their eyes. And a big piece here is sometimes a chain will go in and margin compress, because if they have a hot price on this product, they can put in an advert and people will walk into the store to buy this awesome deal on this spirit bottle. And then you get amazing pull through without having to invest heavily yourself to get to that price point. So that's an interesting part of negotiation is, do you have a brand that's strong enough to make a chain compress on their own margin just to get that hot price point?
So I assume Bacardi is a big enough brand in a lot of places that you could actually convince a grocery store or some retailer to say, hey, if you give a big discount on Bacardi rum today, you're going to bring people in and they're going to buy more groceries or more of your other products. So it's almost like a loss leader, and you're trying to convince them to take your product as a loss leader.
Yeah, and I should mention also Bacardi has a portfolio across all different spirits types. So some of our products can be used by our groceries as a loss leader. Some of them can be used like that, and some other products, like your cordials or your liqueurs, they will always have that full margin, and you'll see them on the shelf, and they'll never do anything, interesting. They'll just be there. But the interesting part is these more hot brands. How can you optimize them?
Yeah. Does Bacardi have any bourbon lines?
Yeah. Bacardi owns Angel's Envy.
Yep.
And when you get into bourbon and aged spirits, it's another interesting trick as well. You might have a brand that's booming and there's a ton of demand for it, but you don't have enough liquid and you can just turn it on. You need it to age in the barrels properly. So then you get into this interesting concept where if I only have a limited amount I can sell now, do I just go out and sell that at Costco, a club retail, and boom, it's gone? Or do I try to put it into the right restaurants, bars, nightclubs, so it maintains a presence in the minds of the customer until that day when I have more liquid to sell them?
Yeah.
And,
so
yeah.
If you're going to age it for 12 years, then the decisions you made 12 years ago dictate how much volume you have today.
Right. Exactly. And
so, that's pretty neat.
Yeah. And a sales team might want to just get it sold, make their life easy so they can go on and work on the next product. But if a marketing team would, of course, want to put it in the right venues, the right spots to maintain that brand value.
Nice. So I know that you don't get to set pricing beyond the distributor, but how do you influence pricing beyond the distributor?
It's a little bit different by state. So some states you can influence by giving coupons or scans to the end consumer. So when you go into a store, you might see a hot price point, and that price point could be driven off of a scan. So when you scan the item through the register, you get an additional discount, and that comes directly or could come from the supplier. But in other cases, like the general case, how do you work with the retail, the chain retail? The best way I'd say it is build a strong plan together. Build a strong plan far into the future, many months into the future of, okay, these are products. If you hit these brackets, you can run these price points. You'll have this pull through. You'll make this GP. and you settle the customer and the whole trade into a stable way of working with hot price points. That to me is the best practice. You can also come in and you want to close your year and you're desperate, and then you throw in discounts and you load up the chains heavily with a bunch of product they will sit on for many months, and then you need to sprinkle scans to get that inventory down. Those are two extremes of how you can do it.
Yeah. And so it almost sounds like what you're doing is playing the role of almost like a category manager, but you're going out and watching, here's what the retailer's neighborhood looks like. Here's what the volume is that you should be moving. If
Yeah.
you behave in the following ways, then we'll probably be able to move this much at these price points.
Yeah.
Is that?
Yeah, that's right. There's so much data on this side of the business with in the grocery side of the business, so much data. So we can predict with high accuracy that if this chain runs this price point this week, we should get this unit pull, give or take. And then we set that as a target, and then we work together with the sales team to keep the chain at that price point, and we look at how reality comes in and matches our prediction.
Oh, this is just fascinating, isn't it?
Yeah.
So the thing we haven't talked about, which probably has a big impact as well, is your competitors' pricing.
Right.
And so how do you take that into consideration as you're working with the retailers, as you're thinking through the right price points?
You can think about it different levels of sophistication. A classical one is to say, oh, this other brand, they're doing a $14.99 and we're at $19.99. We're dying. Come on, we need to drop our price. Like, you can always talk about your competitors with the latest hot move they're doing, and the sales team might come with that information to you and tell you, like, oh, we're dying here, we're not going to make our goal. That's a low level of sophistication of using competitor intelligence. Then you can use, in many markets you have Nielsen data, and you can see the sales and volume pulls up your competitors. So the analysis you do on your own brands, you can look at similar competitor brands as well, and you can find a profile. You can find a profile of how did these suppliers, how are they working, how are they running their pricing strategy. Many times when we've done this, we've found that it looks kind of chaotic. Some suppliers will have a very tight, clean strategy. You can see, wow, these guys, they have a tight idea what they want to do. Other ones, more chaotic. And often we need to find our own strategy. We build our own path of, okay, this is how I want to push our brand. These are the key moments throughout the year. We want to come down in price. And we will look at the competition, but we won't necessarily follow them.
Yeah. Do you track whether your competitors respond to your price changes or not?
Yeah, we can tell. Like, if we've changed a strategy, we'll want to look at it every week it's in market, and we'll look at what competitors are doing as well. So yeah, we'll look at that.
Yeah, because I always find it interesting that if, let's say that we lower our price and the competition says, okay, now I have to lower my price to go follow, would they follow if we raised our prices?
Yeah.
And I always find that fascinating.
Yeah, and I'd say an interesting part about this business is if you go out and raise a price, you typically won't do a big increase. So it's not that another supplier might not detect it, and it can go many months before they see it, and then it'll take them many months to figure out, okay, if they're doing a price increase, maybe we'll do a price increase. So many times you might see a decision you've made is a little bit in isolation. You don't really detect in a big herd mentality.
So what that says to me is that your competitors aren't closely watching your prices to see what you're doing.
Yeah, you could say that.
Yeah, I once worked for a firm where we were tracking competitors' prices regularly, right? We would know when they changed prices so that we could decide what we wanted to do, if we wanted to make a move, or we could see if they were following us or not. So it was pretty interesting.
Yeah.
To see all that.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. What's it like then? You can only set distribution prices here. In the rest of the world, can you set other prices?
Yeah, in Europe, you can set the pricing to your customers. So you don't have to sell for that distributor tier. So you can go and sell to your directly to your customers, groceries, nightclubs, etc.
Can you sell direct to consumers there as well?
No, no. I don't know of any example of selling direct.
Okay, so we're selling direct to the end retailer, essentially.
Right. Yeah.
To the end reseller. Nice. And so that means you have more influence over the end customer price, but you still don't control that price.
Yeah, you're still selling it to someone who will in turn sell it to the end customer.
Yeah. Okay, cool. And so whether it's in the US or Europe, do the resellers have a consistent margin that they say, hey, this is the margin I have to hit, this is the price I want to charge for it? Or how does that conversation go with a reseller?
So reseller, you mean distributors or like the grocery or the nightclubs? Which
Sure, all three would be great, right?
all three. If we quickly on distributors, they want to, of course, like anyone else, want to make money, and they're in demand in the middle, and they could easily get squeezed. So they'll look at trying to make moves that will allow them to be profitable, even in strange, like configurations where you need to go deep or etc. They need to protect their margins, and they'll be a good partner with you when you understand their needs and you can make them comfortable from their business perspective. When you get to
Let's pause there for just a second.
Yeah.
Back when I worked with distributors, they said to us, essentially, look, we need 20 points, 24 points of margin, depending on the product and what we were going to go do. And they essentially dictated to us what their margin was going to be. And so we would set their price so that the price they sold out at would be the price we wanted the next level to see. Do you guys think of it that way too, or does it behave differently in your distribution channel?
as in it's not there's a lot of discussion. Like you can't really say, okay, if I have my price is X, I know I'm going to get Y out of the distributor. There's a lot of talk in between there. If you want to run a hot deal, you typically can't just say, okay, now this is going to be my price for 2 months, and then you can predict that automatically they're going to run something based upon that. So today there's a lot of discussion, negotiation on that. And many times when you come with a hotter price, since the supplier and distributor work tightly, this will also change the sales goals. So if you want to run something hot, anyone wants a lift as well.
Right.
And that will sales goals. So now you're talking to sales as well. So it's many times kind of involved when you want to change anything. You need a lot of people aligned with your change.
Okay, so you don't control the prices that the distributor sells out at,
No.
but you try to negotiate with them on those prices. And so you give them price points, and it's almost exactly like the retailer conversation we had earlier, where
Mm-hmm.
you're trying to build the best business for the distributor.
Yeah.
And for you at the same time.
Right. Yeah. And so that exactly. And so you have that conversation with the distributor, and you have a similar one with the retailer. And you need to synchronize across all of those for it to be effective.
And so it sounds like you guys are essentially modeling the entire industry based on what we think consumers are going to do at the end when they see certain price points at certain times of year.
Mm-hmm.
That is just fascinating. And so now you have to coordinate all of the different players.
Right.
Yeah, cool. We haven't talked about nightclubs at all. Tell me about nightclub pricing. How do they do this? What are they thinking?
So nightclubs, we bucket as on-premise, so nightclubs, hotels, restaurants, bars, and for those accounts, you will see some interesting stuff. Like it's not only about the price and coming with a super low acquisition cost and then someone buying a ton based upon it. There are other things as well, as if you can come in with a cool product and you can also drive some interesting events or partnerships together with an account, that can make things happen. So if you're from a supplier's perspective, you want to build your brands, you want to build them at the right places, the right restaurants, the right venues. And if you come in and do events together with an account, then they'll also want to use your product. And then it's not necessarily about exact bottle cost. It's more about the partnership of building a brand together.
And so once you do the events and you've built the brand, does the brand live on in that retail outlet or in that on-premises outlet spot?
Well, you could find both examples there. So if you build a real partnership with the account and you have a salesperson that comes back and nurtures that partnership, yes, then they'll keep on using the product and it will be successful. But there are other cases where, for instance, if you want a menu placement on a drink list, you come into a bar and you see a menu of drinks and you select one drink. Sometimes those drinks flip super fast. Like they're going around super fast because they can get small partnerships out of just flipping a drink. And that doesn't really build brands over time. So that's something to look at from a pricing perspective. If we're investing into these accounts, is it for a sustainable partnership or is it just for the next 2 weeks and then they're off to something else?
So we're just going to get a quick hit, or we're going to actually try to build a brand that lasts in those locations? Yeah. And so those menu items, is that almost like paying for shelf space at a retail outlet? You're paying to be at the top item on the drink list?
Yeah, there is no pay to play. But like if you have a cool cocktail, you come up with your mixologist and your brand team and the account likes it, they have a cost of reprinting their menus, so you can cover those things. But there's no pay to play per se.
Oh, it's illegal. That's the impression I'm getting.
Yeah, so you can't do that. You can't pay an account to use your products, but you can work together to have good events.
I did not know that. That's it's always cool. Always cool to learn new things.
Yeah.
Okay. So I'm a huge proponent or fan of understanding price endings. My dissertation was actually in price endings, so 99 cents or $1 even,
right?
Or
right.
And I'm just curious, in a bar, do they use price endings for drinks? And does it make sense to use price endings for drinks?
Typically, I haven't researched that specifically, but typically you wouldn't see price endings. I mean, you would see even dollar
numbers. Yeah.
Oh, 13, 14. That's the most common. That's the most common I've seen. I think it's just like an industry kind of practice.
Mm-hmm.
Do you have any ideas? Like, could it be a better way of doing it?
So the reason, maybe it's not better. The reason 99 cents typically works is because people think it's a lower price and because we're lazy subtractors, right? So if I were going to compare something that was $7.99 to something that was $10, I'd probably think that was a $3 difference. Yeah.
And in the retail space, we almost always try to hit even 99s. So on the shelf, we're always talking about 99s, and we're also talking about how you could have a product at like a $20.99 is sort of like a no man's land. First, like if you run something at $19.99, that could pick up a lot more interest and pull compared to a $20.99. And if you want to do $29.99, you could just as well go up to $21.99 because it's not really an attractive price point.
Isn't that fascinating how people don't see the difference? The way people make decisions.
So,
yeah. So this is just so incredibly fun. Karl, I'm going to have to wrap this up, but I got to ask you this one question. What's one piece of pricing advice that you would give our listeners that you think could have a big impact on their business?
I would pull a piece of advice from what we just talked about, how I have all these different players need to coordinate to make things happen. And in my past life as a consultant as well, I would say if you want to really push pricing all the way through and make it hit your bottom line, work and coordinate across all players that are relevant for that decision.
Yeah, I think that's crucial. And actually, there was another question I wanted to ask, and I'm going to jump backwards for just a second.
Yeah.
Do you think that smaller spirits companies are able to do what Bacardi can do? I mean, can you do that coordinating all these players because you're a decent size? And do you think it takes that size to make that happen?
Yeah, there is definitely a size component to it. If you just by having a small brand, by virtue, a chain or a retail account, if they put in an ad, it's not like people will come into a store because this new liqueur is happening. So it's not that you're a small company, it's just that you might have a brand that doesn't have a lot of value. Will change the kind of negotiation you can do. It's not really the size of the company, it's more the value behind your brands.
Yeah, fascinating. Karl, thank you so much for your time today. I've just enjoyed this. If anybody wants to contact you, how can they do that?
I'm on LinkedIn, Karl Petersson.
All right. And that'll be in the show notes as well, so you're able to find it.
Yep.
Episode 78 is all done. Thank you guys for listening. Every week I ask you for a review. So if you wouldn't mind, please, if you enjoyed this, give us a 5-star review. These are very valuable to us. Don't forget, we also have a free community at championsofvalue.com. And at that site, you'll be able to get access to all of the things that I publish, my memes, my blogs, my videos, my podcasts. And if you have any questions or comments about pricing or the podcast, feel free to email me, mark@impactpricing.com. Now, go make an impact.